Hello, this is Katie Groves, and this is part 2 of part 30 in my series about deprogramming from trauma-based mind control. If you have not done so already, I ask that you please watch the first 2 parts of this series, linked in the description below, for disclaimers and safety measures you can take while watching these videos. In this video, I will be continuing my discussion of denial programming. I stand by everything I said in my first video, but I still have more to say, and while this video will still not be an attempt to comprehensively talk about denial programming because I simply can't, I am going to offer a couple more tools. The first tool I'm going to talk about is a rather intense one, but one that has been perhaps most helpful for me, in addition to the procedure I have for dissolving dissociative walls, which I am going to make a video about today and upload along with this one. It involves looking at memories that did not ever fully split, that contain irrefutable evidence to oneself that they were programmed and or ritually abused. For me, I've had many memories like this, and so I don't know how useful this will be to anyone else, because I don't know how many other people have experienced this, but to anyone who has, I hope this is helpful. For me, I have had many memories that never fully split, that proved to me beyond a shadow of a doubt what I went through. And while I had denial programming around those memories, and still do in many cases, or some, to prevent me from fully integrating the memory and seeing it in its larger context, these memories provided gateways for deep healing and acceptance of my situation. So I'm going to give you guys some examples of these memories. I'm going to go into some graphic detail of child abuse, and so if you want to skip this section, I'm going to put in the description the time at which I resume talking about lighter things, if you can call it that. And I'll also put a trigger warning specifically for this section with timestamps so that you have an idea of what I talk about before you decide whether or not to listen. So here are some of the memories that never split fully. I have a memory I glitched out because I got triggered. I'm going to try that again. I have a memory of myself around the age of 7. Lying in my bed, face down, naked, with nothing but a very neatly folded up blanket covering part of me. And my parents are standing over me, behind me, and I am in multiple states of co-consciousness and dissociation. And I am wondering if the adults who are going to come into the room and abuse me are going to find me attractive. And while I have no memories yet of the actual abuse that took place, after that moment, my thoughts and feelings and sense perceptions are very clear. I have another memory of being shown a snuff film in the private elementary school I grew up in that I now know to be MK Ultra involved. That never split. I have a memory of being sexually abused by an uncle while my parents watched, leaving my body when the felony occurred, and scanning my parents' faces using dissociative viewing and a photographic memory to take in exactly what they were thinking and feeling in order to protect myself. And those images of their faces are extremely powerful for me and indicate quite a lot about what was going on. And in another memory, I went to look at pornography for the first time at the age of 13 in my host selves, and child parts came up desperately to stop me from engaging in what they considered to be perpetration, because their experience with pornography was perpetrative. And they showed me an image, a flashback in our minds of child pornography involving an indigenous girl from Central America and 2 white men who were sexually abusing her. And in the final memory I'm going to share, although there were more, I walked in on my father naked and saw his body in full, but his genitals and a square area around them were airbrushed in my mind, meaning that I was caught by surprise, and my programming was not able to fully block it out, so it blocked out, fragmented away the part that was triggering, particularly triggering, that we weren't supposed to see consciously, and I retained that memory. I will say one more, actually. I had a memory that did not disintegrate. Sorry. A memory that did not split off, of myself at 11 breaking through my systems in co-consciousness with parts and deeply deprogramming myself, becoming aware that there was a they, as in the group of people abusing me, and lots of things I'm not going to go into that were very, very telling. Okay, so those are some examples. When I come in contact with these memories, I feel a rush of emotions, a lot of which I've processed now. I'm kind of talking about what it was like for me in the beginning. And I encounter parts that try to come up and prevent me from integrating the memories. I've encountered parts that are there to block me from feeling the feelings, but there's this deeper knowing in me when I come in contact with these memories that they do provide the proof for me of what I went through. And they open the door to me healing the parts around them, and they open the door for me to access the programs and the other memories associated with them. So these parts that hold these memories are very strong and very conscious. Something I have to look out for is programs that were installed around them later, if and when programmers found out that we had retained them, which in many cases they did. And these programs are often heavily booby-trapped with other programs designed to mess me up, which was the second thing that I was going to talk about in this video. Booby-trapped programs. This is something I haven't talked a lot about, which for safety I probably should have, although in my video, Deprogramming Part 2, a note about suicide programming, I do talk about this. And I direct everyone towards that, as you may know, in the beginnings of my videos. But denial programmings, they're often laced not only with suicide programmings for me, but also with many other types of programs, which I talked about in, I think it was Preventing Reaccessing Part 2, types of programs that can sabotage the deprogramming process. It is extremely important for me to remember that when I go in to deprogram a first layer of denial programs, so I go to deprogram a new program, and I find parts that have never looked inward before, I'm likely to get flooded with fog programs, scrambling programs, self-harm programs, splitting, switching programs. And nowadays in my process, I don't have to deal with this so much because I have deprogrammer parts that go in and they unbooby trap these systems for me, so that when I go in to do the core healing work, I don't have to go into those states anymore. It still comes up and it still happens, most often with physical self-harm, fog, and redirection to get me to do something to distract myself instead of looking inward. But I now take these things as signs that I'm simply not ready, and I give these programs back to my Deprogrammer Alters and give them a chance to work on it more. So we've now kind of reallocated our tasks so the hosts don't have to do so much of this hardcore work. But it is something that I have experience with, and in subsequent videos I am going to talk about each of these types of sabotage programs in more depth, which is something that I intended to do a couple months ago when I first made the preliminary videos for them, but have simply been unable due to shifts in my process. So I'm going to return to that, and I do plan to make those videos within the next week or so. Thank you. I hope this has been helpful, and while there is still lots more to be said about denial programming, not just from my experience but from many others, I'm sure, this is all I'm going to say for now. Blessings.